Today I will show you how to create a geometric dot art design on a stone. The figure will look similar to this one, a smaller triangle that is contained in a circle which is inside another triangle. And I have this beautiful big triangular stone to paint on. I choose this side for the painting because the other side is even more chipped and uneven. It has some uneven surface here, but I think it will be fine. So first, what we have to do is to get the shape outline, the big triangle, onto the stone. We have to measure how much space we have on our surface. I take this set square. I can see I have about 9 centimeters in length and also in height. You will have to see how much space you have and adjust accordingly. Now that I know how much space I got, I will draw the geometric shape I want to paint onto a piece of paper and make myself a stencil from it. Then I can transfer the form onto the stone. To make a stencil at home, you will need paper. I use this sturdy one, a ruler, a pencil and a compass, and a pair of scissors. We will start out with the equilateral triangle. And I have already calculated that all the sides of the triangle will be 9 centimeters long. I will measure and then mark the 9 centimeters here. This is the beginning and this is the end. And now I'll take the compass and I set it on 9 centimeters exactly. We want to determine where the third point, the other edge of the triangle is. And for this, I stick the needle on the starting point. And now what I will do, I will draw a kind of half circle around this point. And then we will do the same thing on the other side, around the other point. I stick the needle here and I repeat what I just did. The two half circles should intersect and you should come out with a graphic that looks like this. Now we have located our 3 points of the triangle. First, second and third. We will connect the points exactly with a ruler or a set square from here to here and then the other side. Alright. So now we have our base shape already. Afterwards, we have to find the middle point of each of the 3 lines. I will just measure them and I will mark the point at 4.5 centimeters, half of 9 centimeters. Let's call these points A, B and C. So then I'm going to connect these points with the opposite side of the triangle. Let's start here. I will connect A and 2 and then we do the same here with 1 and C. You can see that the lines intersect. And the last one to the top. This line should also intersect the first lines. And that is where the middle point of the triangle is located. Now that we got the middle point, we can fit a small circle into the triangle. It should just touch the points A, B and C. The diameter is about 2.6 centimeters. So I'll draw the circle inside the triangle. Doing so, I found the last points for my geometric form. Let's call them D, E and F. I will connect these points with my set square and they will form a smaller triangle. Each side of this triangle is 4.5 centimeters long. Now that we have our form all set, we need to get it onto the stone. For that, I take a pair of scissors and carefully cut the big triangle out. We will use the cutout as a stencil to get the outline of the triangle onto our stone. I make a little hole into the middle point of the stencil, then I hold it down in the position I want to draw it on and I mark it onto the stone with the pencil. I do this so when I accidentally slip with the cutout, I can easily put it back into the right spot. Then I hold the stencil down with one hand and with the other I mark the outline onto the stone. We could also try to draw the lines with a ruler, but because of the uneven and rounded surface of the stone, that would be very tricky. Before we draw the other lines of the form, we will paint the triangle on the stone with acrylic paint as our background. I'm using a medium-sized brush and matte acrylic paint in black, but you can also use a different color if you like. Just make sure to really paint into the corners and that you can't see the stone underneath anymore. Then let it dry. Now that we have prepared our background, we have to get the circle and the small triangle onto the black surface. First of all, I will mark the middle point with the pencil through the hole that I cut into the stencil. And holding the cutout down with one hand, I also mark the points A, B and C on the stone. Just like that. Now we have to connect these points again with points 1, 2 and 3 as we did before. For that, I take a flexible ruler, as I call it, which is actually just a straight piece of sturdy paper, and I use it to connect these points once again. It will be a little bit more difficult than on paper because the surface of the stone is not even. Now you have two options about how to continue. You can either cut off the circle of the stencil and then transfer it onto the background, or what I will do now, you can also use the compass and draw the circle onto the stone with the same diameter as before of 2.6 centimeters. For the small triangle, you can also cut it out, or like me, just use the flexible ruler to connect the points D, E and F. Now that the shapes have been transferred onto the stone, we can start with the dotting. I am using 4 different dotting tool sizes for this design. These are actually the smallest ones that I have. The biggest dot size is about 2 millimeters. If you don't have dotting tools, you can also use toothpicks or pencil tips to make this design. I will refer to my dotting tools as dotting tools 1 to 4, 1 being the smallest size. I will create this design in a monochromatic color scheme. I am using white and 4 different tints of acrylic color that is called bright aqua green, and I have mixed them with white acrylics to get different tints. I will refer to the hues as green 1 to 4, 1 being the lightest. Make sure that your paint is not too thick, otherwise add some water or even better, acrylic medium to it. And I also have cotton swabs on my work table to erase mistakes and a cloth to wipe down my dotting tools. First of all, I will dot the outlines of the shapes that we have put onto the background. I will begin the dotting in the middle. I will start out with white paint and dotting tool size 3. I dip the tool inside the paint and I place my first dot right in the middle, where all 6 lines intersect. I will now dot the lines that come from the edges of the triangle, the lines that go from D, E and F towards the middle. Alright. So I place each dot with dotting tool size 3 onto the lines next to the center dot. And 1 more dot next to these. You can take new color onto the tool for this. Don't forget to wipe down the tool in between. Now what I will do, I will use a technique called walking dots. For that, I only apply color 1 time onto the tool and then dot several dots with that. The dots will become smaller and smaller because the paint runs out. Alright. I will do that on each side of the lines with dotting tool size 2. Dot 3 more dots on each of the 3 lines. Now I'll do the same walking dot technique, but I will use dotting tool size 1. And I will walk the dots until the lines reach the edge of the triangle. Paint will run out in the end and only leave these tiny dots on the line. I managed to get about 9 more dots onto the line. I really love this effect. Next, I will dot the outline of the small triangle. I want to achieve the same effect, that the dots become smaller towards the edges. So I start out with dotting tool size 2 and I start in the middle of the line, close to where the triangle will intersect with lines coming from A, B and C. I place some dots with dotting tool size 2 and then I walk the dots with dotting tool size 1 till the edges of the small triangle. Let's take a look at the outline of the larger triangle. I will place the dots onto the outline of the shape, so half of the dot is on the background and half is on the stone. I will leave the part of the outline where the circle meets the triangle undotted for now. I will start out with dotting tool size 4, then I'll change to 3 and then after to 2. I will walk the dots till the end of the triangle with dotting tool size 1 again. And then I'll do the same at the other 2 sides. Now it looks quite interesting already. The rest of the outlines that are still undotted so far, I want to dot with green in the lightest hue. Let's start with the middle again. There are 3 more lines inside the small triangle that intersect with the middle point. These lines I will dot first. But this time the dots should become smaller towards the center, not towards the edges as before. So I begin the process inside the triangle with dotting tool size 3. And I only dot 1 dot on each line. Then 1 more dot with size 2. The rest I dot with size 1 and I managed to fit about 3 to 4 more dots onto the line. Now I do the same thing with the same lines that are outside the small triangle. This time the dots should become smaller when they come closer to the outside. Dot the remaining outlines inside the big triangle in the same manner, but this time I start out with dotting tool size 4 and then change to 3 and then I walk the dots with dotting tool size 2 again. Now we are nearly done with the outlining, only the circle is left. I dotted the circle with dotting tool size 2 also, and I left the part of the triangle where the circle intersects with the big triangle undotted. The dot should become smaller towards this part, so I added these dots with the walking dots technique again. Now the outline of our geometric shape is done, and I can recommend you to let the paint dry before you continue, because now we will fill the shapes in with more dots, and when you make a mistake it will be much less of a hassle to clean up when the outline is dry. We'll start from the middle again and fill in the small triangle first. I start out with green 1 and I'll change to a darker hue line by line. So what you will have to do, you will dot alongside the white lines inside the triangle. You first start out with a bigger dotting tool, then change to a smaller one and then walk the dots to the edge of the triangle. I always try to fit the dots as closely to the outline dots as possible. You can fit a new dot kind of in between to the side of two outline dots like this and dot in a straight line. I always try to imagine a thread that is tightly taut between the first dot of the new line and the edge of the triangle. Like that you can dot in a straight line without adding the outline with pencil lines first. Repeat that process on both sides of all three of the white outline lines. When you make a mistake, you can wipe the line away with a damp cotton swab. When the surface has dried, you can redot that part again. Now we'll do the same process again next to the newly dotted line. This time we can use green 2, one hue darker than before. You can try to fit the dots next to and in between the dots of the previous line. Do that again on both sides of the lines. To dot the last row, use green 3 and replicate the same thing as before. I still have a little bit of undotted space here inside the triangle, but I will leave it as it is. That will give a little bit more contrast to the outside of the triangle that we will dot after this. Now I want to fill in the circle, and I will dot my first line in green 4, my darkest green. And I will dot along the outside of the triangle. The dots should start to the side of the light green outline and they should become smaller toward the edges again. First apply some bigger dots and then walk the dots to the end of the line. Then duplicate that process with green 3 and after that with green 2. You can also add a row with green 1, but I decided to leave that part of the circle unpainted. Okay, now we are nearly done with this project. We only have to fill in the big triangle. I chose to dot alongside the shape of the circle, but instead you could also dot next to the light green outline, if you like that better. Anyway, I start with green 4 and I dot alongside the shape of the circle. I start in the middle and become smaller towards the sides. I repeat this with green 3, 2 and the last line I dot in green 1. I leave the tips of the triangle undotted again. At this point you can stop also, but I wanted to add some highlights and details to my design. So I will add some double dots. That means I will add a smaller dot onto a base dot in a different color. Make sure that the base dots are completely dry before you attempt this. I will take my dotting tool size 1 and dip it in white paint. And I add double dots to all the straight outlines that I have dotted in green 1. Or actually only to the bigger ones. Some of the smaller ones will be too tiny to do that. I do this to make these lines stand out a little bit more. Nice. The last thing I will do is I will add some dots at the parts where the circle intersects the big triangle. That part still looks a little bit empty so far. With dotting tool 2, I add 3 dots on each side in green 4. On top of the middle ones, I dot 1 dot in green 2 that works kind of an extension from the light green outline. And at last, I create some double dots in white. And 3 more walking dots that also work as an extension of the same line, like this. Now our geometric design is finished. After it has dried, you can gently rub away the pencil outlines with an eraser. I hope you enjoyed this video.